This is Stephen Lane, founder of the Prop Store. Welcome back to the movies.
Today on Back to the Movies, we have Stephen Lane, CEO and founder of the Prop Store of London, the UK's biggest seller of movie props and memorabilia. Welcome to the show, Stephen, and how are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks very much for inviting me on board. Great chatting with you.
No problem. It's great to have you on the show. Now, the Prop Store has been running strong now for around 14 years. How did it all start, and what motivated you to start a company selling movie memorabilia?
I've just always been a collector, and I used to collect the movie-related toys when I was a kid, and that moved on to an opportunity to buy an original film prop as I sort of grew a little bit older and used to go to the toy fairs and memorabilia shows and things like that. And it was just the excitement that I have of finding these original film props just floating around at random places that inspired me to research further and dig a little bit deeper and just see whether I could unearth where some of these other lost treasures might be buried, really.
Yeah.
And it's just a hobby that I got very passionate about, and it went out of control. And here we are 14 years later with a facility in London, a busy facility here in London, and a sort of mirror of what we do here in the UK over in LA as well.
Fantastic. By now, you must have a lot of contacts within the movie industry to obtain these props, costume designers, production departments, things like that. How hard was it to get these guys on board when you first started out?
Yeah, that was certainly a sort of a battle is the wrong word, but a challenge, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think that what I came up against very early on was that there was no sort of established protocol, if you like, for this material being brought to the commercial marketplace. And so, back in the day, without trying to sound too old, people used to take this material home as mementos. They were gifted it. They were end of production crew sales. There was no real values attributed to it. And so when I started knocking on doors and phoning people and sort of reaching out, it was like, oh, really? There's an interest in this stuff? And, oh, well, I've just thrown all this stuff away. Or, yeah, I've got this stuff and maybe I'll be able to dig it out for you at some point. And in some instances, it took years and years and years to persuade people to crack open that 20-foot container that had sitting in storage for X number of years, or visit their old storage facility that they've been piling stuff up in since they started working in the film industry, the samples and the examples of the work that they created so they could use it for show and tells for future productions. And so I suppose I was lucky because I live very local to Elstree Studios and Pinewood Studios and Shepperton Studios, and a lot of people who work within the film industry also work within other fields of life. So they, a chippy, a carpenter who works on a film set for 6 months might then go on and do other things at alternative times. So might work on a building site or might work in other walks of life. And I could meet people like that who was like, oh yeah, I did this on the Batman film, and when we smashed up the set, I kept these couple of mementos. Yeah. So I think I sort of had an in so much as I'd already started talking to people within the industry and also meeting them at these toy fairs and memorabilia shows and things like that as well, when that aspect of what they did wasn't of interest to me. And it developed from there. And of course, access to these guys was far more limited at that time, and it was much harder to find people when I first started collecting than it is today. We have these great resources online now, which enables you to look up a full unit list at the drop of a hat and sort of identify who did what and where they were. And it's not necessarily that they're going to want to take a call from us or want to accept an email from us, or, a lot of these people I think find now they get bombarded by people asking them if they've got stuff or kept mementos from when they worked on a film, or if they could introduce them to the producer who might handle the disposal of the assets into the production. But at least now that helps us with the research. So that, the whole dynamics of not only the hobby but how we approach people has changed. But going back to your original question, we were lucky because we did start so early, but before anybody else in the UK was doing this professionally, before really there was a truly established hobby within the UK. And so we developed a network of relationships. One of the first things I did was when I first started the company, and it was just myself and one other guy, was that I traveled to LA. I jumped on a plane and I wanted to introduce myself to distributors, 20th Century Fox, Universal Studios, Warner Brothers, and say, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm trying to do. How do we do this with your assets? How do we make the logistics of this work? And I was very, very open with what it was that I was trying to achieve. And I think prior to that, it was just like a subculture, really, just something that went on almost underground, and people would trade bits and pieces with each other backwards and forwards, and you'd get your annual Christie's sale or Bonham sale or whatever it might be. But other than that, there was no real access for collectors, either. And so, everything has changed dramatically. So I rambled on a little bit there. I digressed a little bit, but hopefully that sort of answered your question.
No problem. I'm very jealous of you going to LA. I've always wanted to go to Los Angeles purely just because of the films and just the actual history and just everything about it really just appeals.
Oh, it's a great place. It's a crazy place, but it's a great place to go to. And I love going out there. I love what we've managed to build and establish out there as well, with Brandon heading it up. He's doing a magnificent job out there. We've got a very strong team there, and it's. But I do like coming back to the UK as well. I like going out there for a little while and sort of nurturing it and getting involved with some of the key meetings that we have. But I have a great bunch of guys here in the UK as well, and girls. A great team here. This is where it all started, and I love coming back to the UK as well.
Fantastic. For those out there who maybe have just started collecting themselves or are keen on owning items of movie memorabilia, what advice would you give them on how to start up their own collection?
Well, I can only base this. I get asked this question a lot, and I can only really base my response on my experiences and what I believe. And I believe that you should always be trying to look to buy something that you're very, very passionate about. Whatever your favorite films are, then go looking for something that really resonates with you, for the reason that you want to own it, you want to have it on your wall, and you want to enjoy it, and really nothing other than that. I think with that in mind, research is key. It's very easy to go onto eBay and look at some of the random statements that are made by some of the eBay sellers who don't really have a track record and don't have sort of any guarantees, legitimate guarantees of authenticity, and sort of get absorbed into, oh wow, I can really buy the Maltese Falcon for $159. I'll take it. I found a bargain. So the research is absolutely key as well. Talk to people, get involved with the community, get involved with the hobby. There are plenty of forums and blogs out there now which never existed before, which have a wealth of information on them. And I think getting right in depth with that side of it, with that aspect of it, is very, very important. I think in the latter years now, a lot more people have been focused upon the investment potential with props and costumes, and there's absolutely no doubt that we've seen huge growth within the marketplace, and in my belief, we still have a lot further to go until we're at the similar sort of levels or comparable levels to even just rock and pop memorabilia, even if you don't look at sort of fine art in general. But that's a dangerous game. It's like any commodity. Things will have peaks and troughs, both in popularity and demand, and that will impact the value of material as well. And so, if you buy with your heart and buy something that you love owning, in the same way that you might buy a picture from a gallery and not consider initially, what you're going to see as a return for it, then I think that's a great way to do it. Just look at that, and as you learn about the hobby and as you become more involved with the community, then you start to get an understanding of the things that are going to appeal to other collectors subsequently, and therefore have appeal to other collectors, and therefore have value to other collectors. And we've seen a vast number of people who have bought from us over the years and still buy from us today very regularly, who do trade as a sort of a part-time hobby come job, if you like, or income earning activity, who just roll material around within the community and manage to make money from it as well. But that's very much aside from where I think any hobbyist should start, really. Discovery, really.
You've probably been asked this question millions upon millions of times, but just in case my viewers haven't seen prior interviews that you've done on other shows, what is your favorite movie prop of all time?
Well, as you know, I'm a Star Wars fan, and so it's going to be from the Star Wars world, really. And again, it's so difficult for me to pin that down to one individual item. But I have some model miniatures from the original trilogy of films, and those certainly do a lot for me. I love that material, both because it's just so rare, but also the craftsmanship that's gone into them. It's just phenomenal to see what was built during that period. That today, unfortunately, in most instances, we're going to see created with using computer graphics, and scarily, brilliantly created with computer graphics. If you've seen Prometheus yet,
yes,
which I've seen 3 times now,
it's fantastic.
The Prometheus ship on that just looks beautiful, and that's completely rendered, and that's disheartening to some degree, just because we're seeing the loss of an art form with the creation of a new art form, obviously with the guys who do this incredible work. But model miniatures are just brilliant, and we have in recent years we have seen other films still use them, and I like to think that people will go back and continue to use them. They looked superb. Bill Pearson built some amazing miniatures on Moon, the Sam Rockwell film a few years ago, and people like Guillermo del Toro and Peter Jackson, still champion the cause of building stuff physically, because it does look so good and it does work so well and it doesn't cost so much. And it's just a question of whether producers and other directors agree with that and have the experience of using those forms for production, really.
Yeah, I remember watching the Star Wars Blu-ray box set not long ago, and the special features of how they built the Death Star, like the huge model that they built, how intricate it was and how much detail went into making it. I think I'm always going to prefer the original rather than CGI.
Yeah, and I think that the community has started to become more divided because the work is getting so good now. But I think, certainly from where we hail from, we want to see stuff built physically. keep building it.
With movie displays in cinemas and museums, both here in the UK and in America, on top of the constant success of the website, what are the plans for the future? Where do you see the prop store in years to come?
Well, I think we're just looking at a continual development of who we are and what we're doing. Interaction with the hobby, with people within the hobby and collectors is key to us. We spend a lot of time focusing on developing our Facebook page to allow people to become closer to what it is that we do and have very direct and immediate feedback with us. But I think it's a continual movement of raising awareness, making more people aware that this hobby exists, that these artifacts should be preserved and should be cherished. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Getting involved with more exhibitions, more events, more museums around the world, which we do very regularly right now. And we're just getting geared up. Literally packing up the flight cases at the moment today for the material that we're sending out to San Diego for Comic-Con, which is only a few weeks away now, scarily enough. And then a couple of months after that, or just about a month after that, we go to Celebration in Florida, where we'll have an exhibition booth there as well. That's really at the forefront of where we're at and where we want to be. The website we have now works really well. We're constantly upgrading that and developing it and trying to make it more efficient for browsers and buyers alike, and just really staying very busy within the community.
Fantastic. I mean, that thinking of exhibitions going back now, that's how I first heard about the prop store. I went on holiday to Torquay, and in Torquay Museum you had the Way of the Warrior display, I think it was.
Oh, yes.
With all the Gladiator stuff and the Saving Private Ryan stuff, and that's how I first got involved in starting out with the prop interest, really. That's what kind of spurred me on to start collecting this kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, that's great to hear. You see, and there we go. That's affirmation of what we're trying to do, and the reason we're trying to do it is working. You know, if we can continue to do that, then it draws more people into the hobby, and it's more fun for everybody.
Sure is. Well, that's all the questions I've got for you today, Stephen. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us here at Back to the Movies. We wish you and everyone at the prop store a successful future, and thanks for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure, Sean. Thanks very much for taking the time to check in with me.